Revenge films.
There were 3 girls who constantly bullied me when I was in middle school. Their bullying wasn't severe enough to make me stop attending school, but they would pull minor pranks like hiding my gym clothes and laugh at me when I looked for them. They also liked to call me ugly. One day, because they hid my textbook, I got punished by the teacher for not bringing it to class. I ended up standing during the entire class. That day, I decided I had to do something to stop them. But I knew if I talked to my mother, she would get furious and call the school right away. So I went to my father for advice. My father was always busy, so I wrote everything down in bullet points on a notepad and left it for him to see in the morning. The following night, my father came home early from work around 8 p.m. and asked me to go for a drive with him. I think my father told my mother that we were going to see a parade. My mother hates crowds, so she would never attend those events. And my father knew very well about that. In the beginning, my father and I were both silent. Then suddenly, my father asked me a question.
What is it that you want to accomplish?
I thought about it for a while and answered, I want to stop getting bullied. The warnings the homeroom teacher gave those 3 girls could only stop them temporarily. Also, I didn't want to rely on the homeroom teacher's intervention every time I got bullied. What I wanted was to end the bullying once and for all.
What are the 3 girls like?
There's A, B, and C. A is the leader of the group and has good grades. B is the cunning one. And C is the weakest and listens to what A and B say.
You should go after C.
Why? A is the worst. Then my father used a difficult analogy to explain his point.
When one side has 5 tanks while the other has 3, which side do you think will win the battle?
Probably the side with 5 tanks? They got more tanks.
But they also have to take a lot of damage, right?
Maybe 2 of their 5 tanks would be destroyed then.
How about 10 tanks versus 1 then?
10 tanks would win hands down.
And they would only take little damage. They probably wouldn't even lose a single tank.
Yeah, you're right.
Aim for a crushing victory. Start with the one who is weaker than you. Remember, you have to go after them one by one.
The next day, I followed C everywhere at school. I even followed her to the washroom. C got very uncomfortable. She turned to me and said, "Why are you following me?" I replied, "I just don't want you to hide my books again," and I glared at her. Later that day, A, B, and C came to my desk to make fun of me. I stared at C alone and ignored A and B completely. Then I suddenly grabbed C's wrist with all my strength. C screamed. A and B had always looked down on C because C's grades were not as good as theirs. So even though C was in their little group, it wasn't so hard for me to fight back against her. Gradually, C became scared I'd go after her all alone for what they did as a group. What my father taught me was not working. Later, I found out that C was the one who had been hiding my textbook and other things. But she was just following A and B's orders. I think A and B didn't want to do anything to hurt their future, so they made C, the timid and stupid one, do all the dirty work. Finally, C couldn't take it anymore. She came to me and apologized. "I'm sorry, I'll never do anything like that again. I'll also stop hanging out with the group. Could you please forgive me?" Because C was A and B's puppet, the bullying should end once she decided to stop harassing me. And that was the first step toward my goal. Okay, but I'll destroy your future next time you do something A and B ask you. "I know, I won't do anything." C left the group the next day as promised and joined a different group. I don't know if A and B were okay with C leaving their group, but the important thing is that C chose to leave them. The bullying had stopped thanks to that. My father applauded me when I reported back to him.
If anything happens again in the future, remember to go after the problems one by one,
he said. In my last year of middle school, we had a class rearrangement. A and C were both moved to other classes, and I was assigned to the same class as B. Turns out we had similar areas of interest. So despite the fact that she used to bully me, we started to get along like normal classmates. We would even exchange information like which after-school tutoring class was worth attending. After C left, A recruited a new girl and started to bully other students. Of course, A would never get her own hands dirty. C told me that A was pressured by her parents to enter a very competitive high school. A had a lot of stress from having to attend various tutoring lessons, so she enjoyed ordering someone timid like C to bully someone for stress relief. As for B, she was the mastermind behind all the pranks. I didn't know the girl they were bullying at the time, but I was angry that they were still doing it. Stopping C and making her apologize to me was clearly not enough because A and B were still bullying others. One day, I heard both A and B plan to apply to a prestigious high school. I couldn't care less about A and B's plans for the future, but my aunt happened to be the director of that school. Because I always had good grades in school, my aunt suggested that I apply to her school. "You should apply to our school. You'll learn a lot," she said. Well, I don't know if I can perform well in such a competitive environment. A lot of the students are aiming for medical school, right? I'm scared of blood anyway. "Things will get better over time." "No, she really doesn't like blood. She would almost collapse at the sight of her own blood." "Really? That's too bad then." I was never interested in attending a prestigious high school and becoming a doctor. But I thought it'd be wrong to help someone who enjoys bullying people who are weaker than them to become a doctor. My aunt often came to her house to chat with my mother, so one day, I accidentally blurted out that A and B liked to bully me and others. I was already not being bullied at the time, but my aunt and mother still got infuriated. I tried my best to calm them down. Later, we all took our high school entrance exam and were about to graduate from middle school. C and I both got into our dream high schools, but I saw A and B crying in the classroom. I never asked my aunt to reject A and B's applications. Plus, as a school director, my aunt would never reject an applicant because of a personal vendetta. I think my aunt and the school made the decision because they found A and B's characters questionable. Doctors are in charge of people's lives. And whoever wants to become a doctor shouldn't have the tendency to bully someone weaker. Or maybe A and B just didn't get good enough scores on the exam. I decided not to ask my aunt about the details, but I had a feeling that A and B got what they deserved. On graduation day, C came to find me. "I'm sorry for all the terrible things I did to you. I know I don't have any excuses, but I was too weak to oppose them. I promise I'll never do that to anyone again. Happy graduation, and good luck in high school." She apologized again and congratulated me. I didn't forget what C did to me, but we did help each other in preparation for high school. So I decided to let bygones be bygones and forget the unpleasant past. "Good luck to you too." I congratulated her sincerely and shook her hands because she was going to a high school in another city. A few months later, out of curiosity, I asked my aunt about A and B. Turns out they both failed to meet the academic standard to get into that high school. A didn't meet the expectation of her parents, so they sent her to a public high school. I heard from a classmate that A had been cooped up in her house. Without A's presence, B became isolated in high school because she could barely make any friends. But at least she didn't get bullied by other people. As for me, I made new friends and am very much enjoying my high school life. I'll never forget A and B, and I'll always believe all the terrible things we do to people will eventually come back to us.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.